Who's a better son, Chris Paul or Devin Booker?
What?
Devin Booker.
Oh, son. Oh, I thought you were saying like son, like somebody like I thought.
No. Like, who's a better Phoenix son? Who's
Devin
more
Booker.
important to their success?
Devin
Who was
Booker.
more important to their success?
Well, you're saying like when
When they
because when
played?
Chris Paul got there, they made the run. Like, okay, but who's a better son? It's Devin Booker. Like he's
Yeah,
been
he's
there
gonna
for his
go
whole
there
life.
He's been there for a
He-
I'm
decade.
just talking about when they played.
He's
when
been
they
there for
played
a
together,
decade.
Chris-
Youngest player
Well,
to
Chris
drop
Paul was an
70.
MVP when they played.
I think when you stack it up, I think
Wow.
Steve Nash is number 1, Chris Paul's number 2, Devin Booker's number 3.
Wait,
In terms of
wait,
most
wait.
impactful when they were there.
Whoa.
Chris Paul
You
was.
say Chris Paul number 2?
Where's
Chris
Amari
Paul-
Stoudemire, dude?
I'm talking about post 2000s. He was a big part of it.
Amari
I was gonna
Stoudemire.
say there's some guys before
I
then.
think
Kevin
Chris
Johnson,
Paul was the
Tom
biggest
Chambers.
catalyst to the Suns being good and making the finals. I think he was the
I
biggest.
put
catalyst.
Nash and Stoudemire over Chris Paul, respectfully.
He played a big role, but Devin Booker. I mean, he
I-
was averaging like
I
27.
might put
like-
Chris Paul above Stat. So
Stat was so.
I understand
strong.
Devin Booker was averaging the points, but Chris Paul was the reason why they were winning.
No, for sure. I mean, he gets hurt, and shit kind of goes left.
I don't hate it. I thought I didn't understand your question at first.
I just
Chris
don't
Paul
think-
doesn't have the longevity with the
no
Suns.
shot.
But if you just say in those years, who was more impactful to the Suns being a 60-win team, making the finals,
arguably Chris Paul.
I think it's Chris Paul.
I don't hate that.
And then since he's left, you see how much they've fallen off.
D
and
Book was the
lack of leader.
franchise player, but to argue,
They've also
Chris
made some
Paul
stupid
had-
I
ass
was gonna say
decisions.
they made some awful decisions, like trading for Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant just hasn't really been able
And
to
the
win. so.
DeAndre Ayton trade was terrible because when you look back at it, they
Toumani
traded Toumani
Camara
Camara
and-
Yeah.
and DeAndre.
And they just got nothing.
I
back
just look at
'cause
Chris Paul. I
Nurkic
think
is-
he's
Chris
the most
now.
Chris Paul
underrated.
is impactful as hell.
he's the
dude.
most underrated, not only floor raiser but ceiling raiser ever. Because you look at the Hornets he got there.
ever.
Yeah,
Yes,
he
yes,
might
ever.
arguably,
Like
yes.
yes,
Ever?
ever.
ceiling
Ever.
raiser.
Yes, floor and
Floor
ceiling
raiser.
raiser.
Floor raiser
You look at what
consistently.
he
Like
he
Michael
got,
Jordan, LeBron James.
he got
Like-
historic. He got historic level seasons out of the Clippers.
Non-GOAT
They had their
territory.
best.
Okay.
They had their best franchise seasons ever when Chris Paul was with the Clippers.
Okay.
He goes to the Rockets. Their floor was they made the conference finals with Dwight
one of the
Howard.
greatest
They
teams
weren't.
ever
They weren't
played.
able to get over the hump. He goes to the Rockets and he pairs with James Harden. They make the finals and take one of the best teams ever assembled in history to 7 games. And he was hurt, and he was a big reason why they won Game 5. He iced that game, and you can argue he was more clutch than James Harden in those stretches. Then he goes to the Suns, and they make the finals in his first year, and they win 65 games the very next year. I just think wherever Chris Paul has gone, whether he's been with the Hornets, he's been with the Clippers, he's been with the Rockets, he's been with the Suns, he's either raised their floor exponentially or he's raised their ceiling.
Absolutely, and he's also changed so much for franchises that went through like a lot of like different. Like he was in New Orleans like 2 years right after Hurricane Katrina. He immediately helps. And same with the Saints in that point in time. The Clippers, there's so much going on with ownership. With the Suns, there's a lot going on with ownership. And it's kind of crazy that through all those times of turbulence, he consistently got those teams to very deep stages and the highest points in their franchise. I mean, the Hornets, he gets there, he turns them into a 56-win team.
Yep.
He's nearly beating Tim Duncan, the Spurs, in the second round of the playoffs, where the supporting cast, like, all right, like Tyson Chandler was written off after his time in
Everything
Chicago.
ran through him.
David West became an all-star because of Chris Paul. At that point in time, Peja Stojakovic went on his last
Sniper.
legs. And he got all of those
James
guys to play
Posey
their
and
best.
shit like that.
So
He got DeAndre Ayton right for a playoff run.
yeah, and
He was one of the biggest catalysts for him
DeAndre
having
Ayton's
effort.
motivation levels since then have never been lower. And from his time with the Clippers,
I think that's a DeAndre.
It really is, man.
Chris Paul was able to be the one player who
to get through to DeAndre
He got
Ayton.
through to him.
Low key, that should be on his resume. Got through to
Yes.
DeAndre Ayton.
That's an impressive feat. And you make a great point. He's dealt with a lot of bullshit throughout his career, consistently been an amazing floor raiser, but because of injuries, people tend to forget he's someone who's consistently played at a higher level in the playoffs. He's gotten better.
He's a
in those-
playoff riser.
in those postseasons. But unfortunately, he's just had a lot of injuries, whether it's to him in 2018, 2021. They go to the finals anyways after he was hurt. So I think his career, it's one of the most misunderstood in NBA history.
Like I think Steve Nash is one of the best floor raisers in the history of the game. I think Chris Paul is just as good as Steve Nash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
I
not
mean, I have a problem
saying
with that.
you're not saying nothing wrong.
So I think that's how I view Chris Paul, and
CP3's better.
it really depends on how you view
It's a toss up.
tenures with franchises, right? Because Steve Nash had the MVPs and he had the multiple conference finals appearances. The Suns always ran into juggernaut teams.
And he also
whether it's
never got a player at
as
his level or to like
Stoudemire's really good though.
you just come
He's
on,
averaging 27 a night.
dude. Really?
And then he got to the Knicks and he was with Raymond
Devin
Felton.
Booker was
on
averaging
All-NBA.
27 a night.
Bro, you just shunned me away when I said Stoudemire over Chris Paul, and now you're talking about he's really good.
He is good. I just don't think he's Chris Paul, but
He's not Steve Nash, then.
but no, he's not. But Amari Stoudemire, he was going toe to toe with some of the best big men at the time.
Let's be so like all the way serious. He
was.
wasn't going like toe to toe.
Yes, he was.
Then you're gonna pull up numbers.
Yes,
I get
let
it.
me box
the
score
numbers.
watch,
We're
right?
gonna
Let me
box score
box
watch.
watch.
Yes,
But
let me
my
box
point
score
of being
watch.
is he never got a player like a 1A, 1B type of situation where I think Chris Paul had that in James Harden. He had that with Devin Booker. Nash was never able to get that type of talent. Like he had Amari Stoudemire, and I think Amari Stoudemire is a great player. I think he's an all-star level player. But when you count him up, like he didn't have a Devin Booker. He didn't have a James Harden. He had, for the most part, they had really good role players.
He had Kobe.
The 2 stars. And what?
He had Kobe.
Oh, when he broke his
he
back.
had Dirk too in Dallas.
Yeah, but Dallas ain't Steve Nash. Phoenix is Steve Nash.
Yeah, that's
With
Kobe's
Stoudemire,
crazy.
four
Kobe's nuts.
playoff runs, 46 games total. Stoudemire averaged 25.5 points, 9.4 rebounds, 1.8 blocks, and he shot 52%
was
from
a
the
dog.
field.
He's one of the most underrated players of all time.
love
I
Stoudemire.
feel like Amari Stoudemire because I was watching his some playoff moments from him last night with the Suns, and I feel like oftentimes people think that it was just like super pick and roll heavy, and there was a dose of that, and Steve Nash giving him the ball, but there was also a lot of face up. I'm just giving the ball to Stoudemire at the elbow or at the baseline. You make a move and you get your own basket, and he self-created a lot of his baskets as well. As much as Steve Nash did and created for everybody, Stoudemire self-created a lot of what he did, and at a time where you got to go up against the Tim Duncans of the world and just other all-time big men in that era in the West, the Paul Gasols, he gave it to them.
he gave them good.
Yeah, he gave it to them.
Chris Paul is great. You just caught me off guard when you said one of the best ever.
He is. You look at the BPM and
Everywhere
stuff.
he's won.
You look at the
Everywhere.
VORP and
Oklahoma
BPM.
City,
Yeah.
Houston,
Yeah, sure.
Phoenix.
And I even forgot about the OKC thing.
LeBron.
He was traded away. Well,
Michael
LeBron. I mean,
Jordan.
when we talk about GOAT level, I mean,
I'd
that's
like
the
it to,
thing.
like
Like,
non-go
Say
territory.
ever.
so
non-go
Magic. yeah.
Magic Johnson doesn't belong in a conversation then.
Well,
Because
Magic's in a different conversation.
but
Chris Paul, respect.
but Magic Johnson ain't as good as LeBron or MJ
No, but he's also way better than Chris Paul.
Like comfortably. He's like top 5.
as players.
top
I don't know.
7 ever.
What? Stop.
I mean,
Stop.
What was their claim with Steve Nash's teammates? He never played players because James Harden. Or
As Devin Booker,
as Devin Booker.
I guess.
He did play with Dirk in 01, but
you
no,
don't
I'm,
think
I'm
Stoudemire-
saying like Phoenix.
And
You don't think
Phoenix-
Stoudemire's as good as Devin Booker? Like I know they're different positions, but like Stoudemire has best.
I don't think there's a huge gap between
Yeah, I
them.
don't think I wouldn't.
Like I think there's a huge gap between him and Harden for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah. I think it's a slight gap between Devin Booker and Stoudemire. I don't remember like the league. Stoudemire was probably covered around top 20, top 25. Devin Booker at his best, probably top 15, stuff like that. So like, it's like
Yeah, I mean top.
it's just having another perimeter oriented guy to go get one. Like I know Stoudemire could go get one, but just having that guy in the perimeter do
They
that.
had it early with Joe Johnson and
Yeah, they just
And they let him walk.
unfortunately, yeah.
yeah.
Sorry.
They had him, but no, because the thing I was talking about with Chris Paul and Steve Nash is it just depends on how you measure tenures. Longevity, you could play that into a factor. I think that's the biggest factor people often
Chris
play
Paul's
into
better
it.
longevity wise.
You look at what Steve Nash did with the Suns, multiple MVPs, conference finals, but never got to the finals. Chris Paul, one finals appearance. He was only there for 3 years at most. And one conference finals appearance and 2 second-round appearances. One that they really choked against Dallas. He's only there for 3 years,
think
So
Chris-
if you count the finals that much more over like the body of work, then maybe you can say Chris Paul, but because he got them to the finals, and Steve Nash didn't do that.
I think Chris Paul has the lower scale LeBron thing where everywhere he's gone they've won to a degree. Like they didn't win championships, but they're competitive. They won. They're always a heavy, not a heavy favorite, but they're always a favorite in whatever conference. Well, he's actually played mostly in the West, so yeah, he's always a favorite in the West. They're always at the top of the West. He has that like lower scale LeBron thing where longevity. I think Chris Paul comfortably clears because I think he was better early, and he was better a little bit late. But you're just talking peak for peak. I think that's where Nash walks into these conversations because 27, 28, where he got to Phoenix, and then he started to be that type of guy. And he was that guy for a while, from like about 36, 37. So it's a good chunk of time. But Chris Paul was great when he came in, great in the middle, great when he left. Well, great when he's going to leave.
Yeah,
so.
Nash is a player that he's weird because he really didn't break out until his 30s.
It's like
It's like a Steve Young career arc.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he had
it's
like
just
six
wild.
6 years of
was
like
really good.
dominance.
It was like his first 3 years was bad. Then the next 3 with Dallas, he was really good. And then Phoenix is like, shit, this is the guy.
MVP.